Welcome to the Rotary Club of Seattle, the fourth oldest and one of the world's largest Rotary clubs, where we embrace service above self and are connecting for good. Today we're going to talk smart money and celebrate youthful talent. A central theme for our business programs this year is innovation. So today, returning Seattle Rotarian Mark Tibergien will brief us on the dramatic transformations underway in the financial advisory industry. And then we're going to enjoy an exclusive performance by some very talented youth from Taiwan. But to inspire us at the start of our meeting, I'm pleased to welcome Father Stephen Sundborg, President of Seattle University. And after Father Steve's words, please remain standing, because Mike Colbreeze will lead us in song, and he'll be accompanied by Burr Stewart on the piano. Father Steve.
What is most important for us today to pray for in this time in our city, our country, and in our own lives? What's missing or what is wanting? Let me suggest that one thing we might pray for is kindness. We pray that in times of stress, of advocacy for individual rights, in times of concern, of being left behind and of not having enough, in our strongly held views and all contention around them, we pray that there not be collateral damage to simple human kindness toward one another and within our communities made possible by kindness. May kindness not be a casualty of our competition. We seek to be courteous and civil, but courtesy can be cold and civility can be distant. We pray for something closer, warmer, simpler, more basic, more human. We pray for lives of kindness. May we resolve to find each day some acts of kindness with those whom we engage. May we take the initiative to build and form communities characterized by kindness. May we as Rotarians committed to service above self be especially known for kindness beyond self-concern. And at the very end of the day, we pray that we may be known and remembered above all as having been women and men of simple human kindness. This will be a blessing on our world and on our times. Amen.
I am delighted to be welcoming Mark Tibergien today. Mark is the Chief Executive Officer of Pershing Advisor Solutions. Pershing is one of our country's leading custodians for registered investment advisors and family offices. Today, Mark is going to brief us on those dramatic transformations that are underway in the financial advisory sector. It's an industry in which Mark is a recognized leader. In fact, Mark, will you come up and join me? Let me tell you a little bit about Mark. Just recently, actually just last year, Private Asset Management magazine honored Mark with its Lifetime Achievement Award for his dedication, commitment, and achievements in the industry. Also last year, Investment Advisor magazine recognized Mark for the 13th consecutive year as one of the 25 most influential people in the financial services industry. And this year, that very same publication ranked Mark as #1 in the top 7 most honored people in that magazine's 25-year history. Last year, Mark's firm, Pershing Advisor Solutions, was awarded the 2015 Private Banking Award for Innovation by Private Asset Management magazine. Mark has also authored 3 books published by Bloomberg: Practice Made Perfect, How to Value, Buy, and Sell a Financial Advisory Practice, and the next one I love, Practice Made More Perfect. But Mark, in addition to his day job, is a mentor to many in and out of the industry. In one significant way, Mark is leaving an important legacy by adopting schools, including his former high school in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, where he underwrites a program promoting financial literacy. Hundreds of students have been participating in these personal economics programs. Prior to relocating to New York 9 years ago, Mark and I were partners in a business consulting practice at Moss Adams. Mark was a member of our club for over 20 years. And Mark, excuse me, Mark is my sponsor for membership here in our club back in the year 2000. So I am personally very grateful to Mark for all I have learned from him and for introducing me to Rotary. So please, let's welcome Mark Tibergien.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I have to note that whenever somebody calls out a Lifetime Achievement Award, it feels like I'm listening to my own obituary. So thank God that's not the case. It is great to be back. As it happens, I come to Seattle often. My wife lives here from June until October, so I make sure to come back so nobody else moves in. It's a safe move. But the summers are much greater here, and it is a wonderful place to be, and I did enjoy my time at Rotary, and I'm so honored and grateful to be back here today. So Kathy asked me to talk today about the state of the financial services industry, which is a giant topic to cover in 20 minutes. So I've decided to winnow it down a bit and focus specifically on what's happening within the wealth management business and what the implications are for each of you. Hopefully what you'll glean from this is a sense of responsibility that we all must take for our financial lives, and hopefully you'll also understand that this is an incredible career opportunity for young people who are trying to find their own way, and it's an incredible opportunity to think how we can profoundly impact the lives of future generations in taking personal financial responsibility for themselves. So when we talk about the state of the financial services industry, the reality is it's much like the Chinese curse that, and it's probably misappropriated. In fact, I think it really goes back to a British curse, but they suggest that somehow it started in Asia. And that is, may we live in interesting times. And that, for sure, is what we're talking about as far as this industry is concerned. May we live in interesting times. The changes that we've seen in this business are both good and bad. They're distracting, but enhancing at the same point. There's an interesting backdrop to everything we're talking about in this business because we are seeing record levels of achievement in the stock market. We are seeing interest rates at historically low levels for prolonged periods of time. And so it's hard to understand always why there are challenges facing the wealth management or financial services industry, yet there are factors that we have to contemplate that are really driving this. There is an undercurrent of unease that is happening in this business, and there's an undercurrent of unease that's happening in the community of consumers that we have to be conscious of. But in a nutshell, what I want you to realize that as a consumer of financial solutions, each of you in different ways, that there are several things that are going to happen. You will see greater transparency. You will see lower cost. You will see limited choice in terms of the financial solutions that you can use, particularly in your retirement plans. You will see easier access to the data and the information and the insight that you can glean, and you will see better protections for your net worth and for your personal investable choices. Now, there are three factors that I'd like to hit on for you to just be thinking about how these changes are occurring and what it means for you and for your families. The first change has to do with demographics, and I'll delve into each of these. The second has to do with the rapid enforcement of regulation and new rules that are coming that have great implications for each of you and for the business. And three is the consumer attitudes towards financial services and towards investing in general, which are both disconcerting but in a way heartening when we're seeing what the changes are. So let me talk first about investor attitudes, because I think that this is probably what's causing this curse that I referred to take root. What we know is that today financial services as an industry is rated below congressmen, if you can imagine. And we contemplate why that happens. What has caused this sense of unease in this business? Because those of us who are in it know that most people who operate within financial services are of considerably higher standing. But just like anything, when we see bad apples, when we see bad examples of Madoff or Bambi, the broker in LA who ripped off all the stars, you hear these names and you think of horrible things that occur. Or in 2008, when the banks and the brokerage firms were collapsing. In fact, what we know is that there are 1,400 fewer broker-dealers than there were in 2008. Firms that you might have recognized that were around here, like Foster & Marshall or Cater Peabody. Some of those names sound familiar? And so when we look at what's changed in the marketplace, we know that there are big changes that are happening in the business. But probably the biggest thing that is a concern as far as investor attitudes are concerned was a study done by Phoenix Marketing that said one-third of the investor population believes that the financial services provider is acting in their best interest. Another third is neutral, and another third is negative. So for all intents and purposes, 2/3 have a negative attitude about what financial services means. We have to be conscious of this. Those of us who are in the business are doing everything we can to change that perception, but we realize why that uncertainty happens and what we're going to do about it. Now, the economic crisis and the frauds and the misdeeds that occurred are clearly examples of what's happened, but the regulators are attempting to change this, which I'm going to touch about in a moment. What we realize in particular, though, is that there's a fundamental change in the way in which financial professionals engage with their clients, and it's more around the emotion of money rather than the motion of money. What we're beginning to understand is behavioral finance. Everybody's connection to money changes the way in which we think about how we invest, how we save, how we spend, how we contribute. And these factors are probably going to be the most profound changes that we see in wealth management going forward. Second big factor that is affecting this industry, demographics. If you listen to the pundits or you read the publications, you'd have to believe that when the last boomer dies, the world will come to an end. And it's really interesting that somehow we are forgetting an entirely middle generation of Gen Xers. Forget about the millennials who everybody talks about. We've skipped over a complete generation. But Gen Z is coming right behind in terms of needs and desires and a way of doing business that are going to be so far different from anything we've seen before. But I'd like to just talk for a moment about this boomer phase because the boomers have had such a profound impact on the way everybody has done business. And it's really an interesting phenomenon because how many of you are boomers in the room? All right, just about 2/3 of the room seems to be of that category. You might remember you were born to Ozzie and Harriet houses, right? Perfect families. But then many of you, and I'm going to guess there are a few of you in the room, rejected that idea, and you thought that having unwashed long hair and making love to everything that moved was a good idea. But somehow, when you got to this age, you said, you know what, that was great for me, but the next generations can't have it. And I find it interesting that we have aging hippies that have now found God and have decided that Donald Trump is their candidate. Now, how did they go anti? It's very confusing to me. I don't know about you, but it's very confusing. So clearly, when you have no more oats to sow, you have to kind of hold it to yourself. And I think a really great example of this, I was in the UK when the Brexit vote came down. I was in our London office. It's a very large office there. And one of the great divisions that I saw that was quite interesting was between the older generation of employees and the younger generation of employees. The younger folks were really annoyed that the older folks voted for withdrawal. And it was that whole notion that we've enjoyed the benefit of the European Union, and so now you can't have it. And so this tension between generations is real, and the recognition that this alienation of what happens in the marketplace is real as well, and it's changing the way in which we think about things. So there are implications for the financial services industry that is particularly profound when we contemplate this. So I want you to think about some of these statistics. Since 2008, there are 40,000 fewer financial professionals, 40,000 fewer financial advisors. And it's not just in the US. In the UK, there are 10,000 fewer financial advisors than there were just 5 years ago. So people are not coming to this business, which is really quite interesting because it's a business that, if you do it well, you profoundly impact the lives of others. You're intellectually stimulated. You're financially rewarded. You have a sense of independence. And so you say, how is it not a compelling career choice for people that we have to begin to understand? But what we know is that the average age of a financial advisor in America today, and actually it's true in Australia and the UK and Canada as well, the average age of a financial advisor, average, is 57. That there are more certified financial planners over the age of 70 than under the age of 30. That 23%, only 23% of the financial advisory profession are women, and only 4% are people of color. Do you see opportunity here? Do you see a chance for the way in which we can think about what a career choice is that could be profoundly impactful on the lives of other people? So I was curious about this. Within Pershing, we have a millennial program. It's called Connect. And each of us on the executive committee have reverse mentors. So a 25-year-old woman tells me what to do at least once a week. And it's a great experience. It's probably the most profound experience I've ever had in my business life because I get insight into things that I could never imagine. And some people say I get that from my kids, but trust me, it's not the same because this is a very direct, helpful, constructive conversation. And so I asked her to engage the entire Connect group, to go out to their friends and ask, why did you choose not to come into financial services? Why did all these friends of theirs that are in different professions choose not to come into this business? And the three answers were really quite startling. One, never studied finance in school, therefore never thought of it as a career. Two, don't want to be in sales, it sounds like all you do is sell. And three, the industry is corrupt. Shocking, isn't it? When you hear those kinds of comments about the industry that you work in, you have to think, what do you do to make changes that are different? And this is a giant perception that those of us in the business don't agree with. So we recognize here that there's a change in the way in which the marketplace is viewing us, that subsequent generations aren't viewing us in a positive light, and that we have to consider, is this a career choice for them and a way in which they can impact the lives of other people? Because ultimately, achieving financial independence is important for all of us if we're going to be sustaining, contributing members to society. There's also a changing face of the consumer. The asset accumulation rates for minorities is at a record rate. In fact, you can see the demographics and it's very heartening. There are many studies that validate 80% of all women will control financial decisions in their household at some point. And in fact, we see this trend taking hold in many cases, yet advisors have not yet recognized that connection and often miss out on how they relate to couples and families. 70% of women say that they will not work with the financial advisor if they're in a couple should their husband die or should they get divorced. And so that is part of the alienation that has occurred within the marketplace. 90% of children of wealthy families say they won't work with their parents' advisors. And so you see these changes and you say, how do you prepare yourself for an industry that is about to go through profound change when you see an entire generation that is at heaven's waiting room? You have to contemplate these changes and what will occur in the business. What's interesting and optimistic, though, is the rate of growth of millionaires in this country is phenomenal, 7% a year. There are 18 million millionaires in the U.S. today. And so as you look at the need to manage people's complex financial lives, the rate of growth is really quite phenomenal. Third point, regulation. So much of the focus of the regulators has been to enforce what's already on the books. What's interesting is FINRA, which is the regulatory agency for the broker-dealer world, doubled the rate of fines in 2012 over 4 years before. So they fined over $68 million to participants in the business compared to under $30 million just 4 years before. And so enforcement of what's on the books is recognition that something was wrong and something was in need of correction among them. But the really big changes that have happened to this business are two legislations that hopefully most of you have heard about. One is called Dodd-Frank, which is quite complex, and the other is the DOL fiduciary rule, or what people call the conflict of interest rule. Now, the significance of these is that the regulators are attempting to clean up the act that the industry itself wouldn't clean up. And so as much as most of us don't like additional regulation, we have to realize that if we're not doing it for ourselves, then somebody's going to do it for us. And perhaps in the case of the DOL rule, the whole notion of being a fiduciary, much like bank trust departments operate and registered investment advisory firms operate, is the notion that you have to act in the client's best interest first. And that principle is fundamentally the principle of being a Rotarian, isn't it? Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Does it build goodwill? That's fundamentally what the fiduciary rule is telling us is important in this case. So the point is in this fiduciary rule, if one is advising you on your retirement plans, like your 401k or your IRA, then the focus has to be, am I doing it for the right kinds of financial solutions at the right price in a way that is not going to be distracting? So there are implications in all of these changes. Many firms are out of the business. Many new people are coming into the business. There were 750 new registered investment advisory firms created last year alone, while 1,400 broker-dealer firms disappeared from the marketplace. And the changes are not just unique to the U.S. They're happening in Australia, they're happening in Canada, they're happening in the U.K. The world is recognizing the need to change the dynamics around financial services. But all is not lost. So there are three things that I'd like you to think about as a takeaway, because I want this to be a connection of what's happening in my business to your financial lives. First, embrace the regulation. Recognize that what's being proposed is a notion of protecting you as the consumer to make sure that we as an industry are doing the right things in case there are miscreants who are not paying attention to it. Second, encourage your children and their children to contemplate financial services as a career choice. Think about it. You get a chance to affect others, get rewarded for it, and be intellectually stimulated in the whole process. And it's unbelievable, the talent shortage. So if they're saying, where am I going to work? Point them in this direction. 3, invest in financial literacy. Kathy mentioned the program that I've adopted in a very poor part of Michigan, way in the Upper Peninsula. I sponsor my high school. I was inspired by an advisor in Boston who was doing the same thing. Literally hundreds of kids go through this. It's a full-year educational program, and I'm now getting letters from those kids saying, I've graduated without any student debt. I've decided to go into this business because I can make a difference. I want my parents to learn what I learned. Get that one. And so you see these changes that are happening, and you're saying, alas, people are taking control of their lives. And that's the opportunity. So in 20 minutes, I gave you a highlight of the world in financial services. I hope you'll think about these three things and how you can make a change in your children's lives, in your grandchildren's lives, in your own lives in terms of your relationship with the people who are advising you. Take control of your financial destiny, and good luck with that.
Thank you, Mark. Mark is going to stay for a couple more minutes and take some questions. So Paul is on the floor with her mic, and so is John. So who has some questions on the financial industry?
We have a question right here.
Hi, I'd like to know, you mentioned the image issue that the industry has in terms of trust. I'd like to know what you're doing about it. Not you personally necessarily, but what's the industry doing? Are there investments, the profession doing? Are there investments they're making in public awareness or public image that will be helping it? And then second, I was wondering if you could define millionaire. You talked about 18 million millionaires in the United States. Is that based on net worth, or is that something on more liquid? Current assets less current liabilities?
Yeah, two good questions. The industry really hasn't coalesced as well as it could, but each of the industry associations are attempting to promote the idea of being more trustworthy. For example, there's a lot of emphasis today around the fiduciary standard that people are embracing, which is tremendous. There are a few groups that are opposing it, and that's creating a bit of a distraction. But those who are saying we must act in the best interests of clients all the time is ultimately elevating the relationship that people have. There's also the Center for Financial Planning, which is a new nonprofit. I just was asked to serve on the board of it, whose whole mission is to promote diversity within the profession. I gave you some statistics there, and I find that to be just an incredible initiative that we're seeing. So everybody from the Urban League to university professors to people from the industry are participating in this. With respect to the millionaire standard, it's a great question. Obviously, house values are a big part of what's driving up, particularly in places like Seattle or San Francisco or New York. But the notion is that it's the rate of growth in new wealth, not just from asset appreciation, that is dramatic. And we see it primarily on the coast where technology companies are driving actual liquid wealth that is quite impressive. And we see this in our own demographics. Within BNY Mellon, 25% of the world's wealth runs through us every day. And we see considerable activity from around the world in terms of what happens. And the value of the client relationships with the firms that we're serving continues to rise. And so that gives me confidence that we're seeing true net worth increase.
Anna Leota has a question.
Thank you so much for your comments today. Very insightful. My question for you is around the democratization of tools in the industry. We see now Alexa Von Tobel out of New York with her LearnVest and Wealthfront. These are tools that democratize how much access people have, and millennials particularly kinder to. Can you talk a little bit about how that's changing the relationship to your advisor in the industry?
The reality is that what's happened in financial services is that technology, or the way in which solutions have been provided, have been changing fast over the last 40 years. The emergence of ETFs and index funds and target date funds are good examples of a form of robo-solution that's made it easier. The robo, or the technology solutions that you refer to, are enhancing the digital experience, both for the clients and for the advisors, so that does contribute for ease of access and greater transparency. In terms of impacting a large number of people, it's not there yet, but what is clear to us, we've in fact integrated 4 of those solutions into the Pershing platform. What's clear to us is that the industry has to catch up to the rest of the world in its ability to service clients on your phone or however people want to operate. And so that's changing quite rapidly. But one thing that is pretty clear is that individuals will still require other human beings to provide insight and wisdom, that algorithms don't solve for that. And so just like WebMD hasn't really materially changed the medical profession, this will enhance it, but it won't make people obsolete in the business.
Next question right here.
Mark, I thank you for what you said. The regulation, the flip side has been, and I know financial advisors in the room have dealt with this, where more compliance comes to them. Therefore, the firm says, hey, you got to step up the minimum investment you got to have with our firm. There's a lot of people that have been left to the wayside in that process. And there's the hope that the technology platforms like were mentioned will fill that gap. But isn't it just far less humane and far less personal in terms of people getting the behavioral advice you mentioned earlier?
Well, I think the point that regulation will disenfranchise small investors, the reality is that most financial professionals don't want to deal with small investors anyhow, and so it becomes a challenge. I think that this is where we as an industry and you as a community have an opportunity to teach personal financial responsibility to individuals, to begin accumulating wealth even through the tools, for example, that she referred to, as a way for individuals to take control of their financial lives. I'm not sure that regulation by itself is a disincentive, and I'm 100% certain that somebody's going to figure out that there's opportunity in that small market. So the LearnVest, the Wealthfront, the Betterment, Personal Capital, these are digital solutions where their average client is small. In the case of Wealthfront, their average client is $17,000. In the case of Personal Capital, average client is under $200,000. So there's a market for it. They've figured out a way to standardize it.
I have a question from David Brenner.
I like and trust my longtime financial advisor. I've noticed, though, that there's a tendency to blend commission rates and the service fees or management fees that I'm charged. I wonder if the new regulation may result in some new approaches to calculation of fees or fee approaches that will maybe give rise to some real entrepreneurial opportunities for those who want to break out of the blend.
Yeah, right now, in financial services, there's real confusion over what is called a hybrid advisor, where people are charging both the commission and fee, and depending on the types of accounts. In the end, it's up to the consumer to say, is the total cost fair? And are you delivering value the way I want it? One of the ironies of this business, it's the only profession I know where the client pays based on the value they bring rather than the value the financial provider brings. And so you think about this as an irony. So part of what I think, in fact, we can see it in our case in Pershing. In 2008, 5% of the assets that were held on our custody platform were advisory in nature. Today it's 53%. And many of those are broker-dealers who have shifted from a commission brokerage type model to a true fee advisory type model that has made a difference. And so I would suggest to you that you just continue to challenge on that or seek another advisor who can provide greater clarity and transparency in what the fee base would be.
One more question.
Yes, Kim Moore has a question right here.
Thank you for your comments about the Department of Labor rule, and in particular, the number of firms that have joined the industry and those that have left. With regard to implementation of the rule, what are your thoughts on the competitive landscape? Which firms are more likely to survive, and in particular, can you speak to those miscreants you mentioned?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say BNY Mellon and Pershing would be among the survivors. But the reality is that there are some organizations who are not paying attention to it enough, including registered investment advisors, because they already perceive themselves to be fiduciaries. But it's like driving across Montana. Remember when they never had a speed limit? But as soon as you went into Idaho or Wyoming, then the police were waiting there to give you a citation. That's kind of the difference in the fiduciary rule between what happens today, which is a principle, versus what will happen under the DOL rule. I think what's going to happen, though, is that most firms will adapt in terms of delivering low-cost financial solutions like ETFs and index funds, and they will put them in advisory-type platforms where there's a fee, and the question is whether they will be competitive. My expectation is that we will continue to see rapid consolidation in the industry, both among registered investment advisors, bank wealth departments, and broker-dealers. So I think you'll continue to see this combination because the economics are changing the way in which they operate.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Well, we're going to shift gears now for a moment. Last week, those of you who were here heard our formal farewell to Director General Andy Chin of the Taiwan Economic and Cultural Office. So Andy, I'd like to invite you up just for a moment more. Last week I didn't have this, but today I do. Usually we exchange club banners when we have visiting Rotarians, often Rotarians who visit us from outside the U.S. But I'm going to offer Andy our banner to take back to Taipei with him. We actually designed a new banner last year. I don't know how many of you have seen it. Very nice. It has some iconic Northwest images, including the Space Needle and Mount Rainier. And since last week, I have not had an opportunity to get to the top of the Space Needle. However, this past weekend, I was up on Mount Rainier, and you see a photo actually here. That's at about 13,000 feet, because it was too windy to get this out any higher up. But Andy, I would like to give you, on behalf of our club, your fellow Rotarians, a banner to take back with you, and thank you again for everything you've done for our club, including being the host for the Youth Ambassador performance that's here today. So thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
President Cassie Gibson, Director General Chin, distinguished Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Victor Ching. I'm the leader of the Youth Ambassador Delegation from Taiwan. The International Youth Ambassador Program is sponsored by our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's why an old guy, a relative old guy like me, can travel with a group of young ambassadors. The Youth Ambassador Program recruits talented university students from universities across Taiwan and travel abroad to conduct cultural exchanges through stage performances, seminars, and meetings. Our delegation has 27 students from 17 different universities across Taiwan. We have been to Vancouver, Canada, and after Seattle, we're going to New York tomorrow, and then on to Santiago, Chile, in South America. We have two stage performances so far. One at the Playhouse in Vancouver. The other one was yesterday at the Seattle City Library. And it was a full house, and we are really appreciated that we're warmly received. I just want to thank you for your warm hospitality for us. As a seasoned diplomat, I've traveled to many places of the world, and everywhere I go, the Rotary Club symbolizes great success, social services, and generous contributions. I think the Rotary Club of Seattle is nothing different, except probably having more opinionated speakers. No, my English is not my mother tongue. I mean knowledgeable speakers. In closing, I just want to wish Rotary Club a great success and everyone here good health and happiness. I will turn my mic to one of the young ambassadors, Humphrey Shi, to say a few words. Thank you.
Honorable speakers and distinguished Rotarians, it is my honor to be on this stage and in the city of Seattle. Seattle is a city of art and music, friendly people, and people, all kinds of people from different ethnic groups. Seattle is located by the ocean, which is very similar to a lot of major cities in Taiwan. And one thing that really impressed me is the beautiful architecture and city landscape. In my opinion, the way Seattle evolves into such a beautiful city of robust economy and amazing arrangement of city landscape by the shore offers a lot for cities in Taiwan to learn. And again, it is an honor to be in the Emerald City of Grace and Elegance, and with all our distinguished entrepreneurs. And thank you for inviting us to this wonderful event. Later on, we'll be bringing you a short performance, and hope you guys enjoy. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Arthur and I'm the leader of our group. As you know, we are youth ambassador from Taiwan, and today we would like to promote Taiwan by our performance. For me, I practice Diablo, also called Chinese Yo-Yo, have been 11 years already. In 2012, that year, I was the champion of whole Taiwan. And I feel really honored today that I can participate Rotary activity. That's because last year I was the exchange student. I went to Denmark as the Rotary Club. So I feel like Rotary Club is just at home. Like, it doesn't matter what country we are, it's like Rotary is just like a big family. So today I really want to perform the Diablo to you guys, bring my happiness to all of the people like here, and I hope you guys enjoy my show. Thank you very much.
Waterloo, Poitiers, and Veragou, through Bruce's War, the 100 years, through battlefields of blood and tears, from Bosworth Field to Point du Hoc, Stalingrad and the Siege of York, the bloody turf of Gallipoli had no effect on the killing spree. Bannockburn to Austerlitz, the fall of France and the German Blitz, the cruelest of atrocities. Europa's blood is born of these. Bolsheviks and feudal from the new caliphate. The victors of this war on fear will rule for the next 1,000 years.
Our next performance will be the rhythmic gymnastics, and it's one of the items in the Olympic Games. And now let's welcome Yuan to perform the gymnastic with her ball and ribbon. Thank you.
Я люблю буги-вуги. Я люблю буги-вуги. Я люблю буги-вуги. Я танцую буги-вуги каждый день. Чтоб настоящим стилягой стать, нужно, приятель, нормально танцевать. Ты должен знать, что такое канадский стиль. Здесь все серьезно, здесь не полька, не кадри. Есть атомный, еще есть гамбургский тройной. Попробуй научиться, парень, ты заводной. Ты любишь буги-вуги. 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 Ты танцуешь буги-вуги каждый день.
Wow. Thank you, Ambassador Chin. Thank you, Director General Chin. And is Vice Consul Sophia Chi here in the room? She was also instrumental in getting this organized today. And thank you to all of the youth ambassadors. I appreciated you all standing up and singing, as well as the performers. Let's give them another hand. Wonderful. And also, Mark, I want to thank you for being here and sharing some insights, some important insights on an important industry and the impact it has on all of us. We actually have an opportunity to spend some more informal time with Mark. He's agreed to join our after party tomorrow. As you know, it's an opportunity for fellowship every Thursday, and it'll be at Elephant and Castle tomorrow starting at 5. So Rotarians and guests alike are welcome to join us, and Mark will be there. So look forward to seeing you again and hearing a little bit more informally. My call to action today is going to be quick because, to be honest, I didn't know how much time we were going to have here at the end. I want to ask you to mind your money. I want to ask you to marvel at the world's youth. I want to ask you to just take a moment and reflect on September 11th and to celebrate every day between now and the time we get together again next week here at the Westin to look at the 21st century of education. We are adjourned.